Welcome to the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers. There are no traffic jams along the Extra Mile when you're studying for your bar exam. And now, your host, Jackson Mummy, owner of the Celebration Bar Review.
Well, hey everybody, welcome to episode 158 of the Extra Mile podcast. This is your host, Jackson Mummy. I'm so glad that you're with us today, honored that you'd be taking time out of your day to spend it with us to talk about the bar exam and all things bar exam related. Now, in today's episode, we're going to do something a little different. I actually have one of my staff members, Kelly Perkins, who's going to join me. We're going to do a sort of a back and forth discussion about the July 2017 bar exams. We did this right after the exams finished, so it was our first impressions based on what students were telling us in several different jurisdictions about what was tested in their particular jurisdiction. I hope you'll stick around. I think it's an interesting discussion. We're going to take a look at Florida, California, the UBE, which of course includes New York, New Jersey, DC, Colorado, Missouri, and so on, many others. We'll also look at Georgia, Texas, and the multi-state bar exam. So we had a lot of ground to cover there. So stick around for that conversation in just a few minutes. Now, if you'd like to watch today's episode of the podcast, you can do that by going to celebrationbarreview.com/158. You can find the entire episode on video, and you're welcome to do that. You can also, of course, listen to this podcast on Apple iTunes or on iHeartRadio, whatever your favorite way is to consume your podcast information. And if you'd like our prior podcasts, you can go to celebrationbarreview.com. You will see a link at the top of the page for podcast episodes. Just click there and you'll find all of the back episodes and show notes. And where we started doing videos, you'll see the links so that you can grab the video versions if you prefer. Now, one other quick note before we jump into our discussion about the July 2017 exams is that this coming Thursday on August 10th at 3 p.m. Eastern, I'll be holding a special live webinar called How to Make the Next Bar Exam Your Last Bar Exam. This is a look at the powerful, proven way to pass. And we're going to take you through everything that you have to do, 4 steps that we have worked with thousands of people for success on their bar exams. Now, this material is valuable beyond belief, but it's also free. However, you do need to register to join us. We limit the size of our groups so that we can make sure there's plenty of interaction. And you can register in one of a couple of ways. You can go to our website, and on the front page, you will see a link to sign up. Just go ahead and claim your seat and take care of it there. If you're watching this podcast on video, just scroll down the page and you will see a button. Click on that and you can register that way. And the third way is that if you prefer to just text your registration, text the phrase, all one word, next bar exam to 33444. So it's the phrase next bar exam to the number 33444. Whichever method you use will get you registered, and then we'll see you Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Pacific time for this special information about how to make the next bar exam your last bar exam. Well, we had an interesting conversation. It was not Regis and Kelly, but Jackson and Kelly talking about the bar exam. And so I wanted to jump into that. But before I give you the specifics, I do want to let you know that Kelly is on our staff. She's one of our editors, but she's also the community manager of our Facebook community group, and she does some of our group coaching calls. And so she's a great resource and someone that I really wanted to introduce all of you to. This is really the first time that we've had her on the podcast in this capacity, but she's been working with our students now for about a year, and so this was a great opportunity to chat with her. So hope you enjoy it. Hope you find some interesting information. And obviously, as results and information starts to come out, we'll have a better, clearer sense, I think, of what was actually tested on each of these exams. And if you felt that there was something different in your jurisdiction than what we discuss here today, shoot us a note, email us, or drop it into the page here. We'd love to get your feedback as well. So let's not wait any further, and we'll jump into our discussion of the July 2017 bar exam. Keep Kelly with me today, because we're going to talk a little bit about what we know from our end about what happened in July a couple weeks ago in the bar exam. Now, I want to caveat a little bit of this because clearly, we only know what people tell us. Sometimes people think that we've got, like the secret, back channel, like we're the mooch is talking to us. But we don't have any of that. So we get what you guys tell us for the most part about these exams. And then as the questions are released and other information comes to us from the bar examiners, we produce that and put it out into the course. Each jurisdiction does this differently, and they do it at their own pace. So, for example, we have the 3 essay questions from Florida already in our hands. We will not have the essays from Texas or Georgia until Thanksgiving. So there's this long sort of stretch that happens in between, but we wanted to share with you today what we do know currently and what feedback we've gotten. And we invite you to let us know questions or feedback that you've got as well. We're not going to go super in depth here, but I know that Kelly's been talking with a number of you. I've gotten some feedback from people. And I wanted to just briefly go through Florida, California, UBE, Georgia, Texas, I think that's the ones, and tell you what we understand. And recognizing that you may feel differently about what was tested in some of these jurisdictions if you were there, and that's fine. Go ahead and let us know. We know what people have said to us. We've tried to see where there's a consensus and go from there, but sometimes there isn't a consensus yet. And so we're just sort of in real time talking about that. Does that make sense? Am I right, Kelly? We good with that? Okay. So let's start. And I know that obviously not everybody's interested in every jurisdiction, so we're going to try and keep this relatively quick. So just bear with us when we're talking about a jurisdiction that's not yours. All right. We're going to start with Florida because we do have the 3 essay questions actually released. Florida lets you walk out of the room with those questions in hand, which is nice of them. And actually, before I get to the essays in Florida, let me just say the Florida multiple choice topics, for those of you that are Florida bar takers, we had Florida civil and criminal procedure, which we always have. Then we had business entities, which is agency, partnerships, corporations, would you say? That's a...
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. And then we had Florida wills. Those were the 3 multiple choice topics. They were mixed question. In other words, they weren't all together. They're mixed from one to the other. Did you get much feedback, Kelly, about the Florida multiple choice?
No, I mean, it didn't seem to be an issue for anyone in particular. I mean, those are tough questions anyway, and people go into them knowing that they're tough. So I didn't get any positive or negative feedback from those, no.
Yeah, I heard from a few people who said, you told us that Florida multiple choice was going to be awful, and I didn't believe you, and they were more awful than you said.
Yeah.
So there you
They
go.
always are.
They're always awful. All right, now, Florida essays. This was an interesting group of questions. There were some surprises, at least to me, in these essays. Let me just briefly take you through them. The first essay was what we're calling Florida family law and dependency with professional responsibility as a crossover. We'll come back to that one in just a minute. The second essay was Florida con law with a distinct professional responsibility subtopic, I believe. Mm-hmm. And the third question was secured transactions, negotiable instruments crossover. Is that right?
Exciting.
Yeah. It doesn't get any better than that, does it? All right.
Yeah.
So this first question in Florida family law and dependency is a new question. Dependency has been on the list, but not really been tested up until now, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
And can you just briefly, the fact pattern in that first question was what, Kelly? Do you remember?
Sure. Yes, I do. So there's Molly, Fred, and Fred's parents, and Molly surrenders a baby that she has presumably with Fred. She's also dating another man. They kind of tell you that a little bit at the beginning, and then he just kind of vanishes. She surrenders him at a fire station. And important fact, baby is 5 days old. So
baby is born on April 1st, by the way, which should have been assigned to many because that is my birthday. So that should have been like right there. You should have said, I got it. I know what's happening. So, okay, sorry, just a little trivia.
Right. So not to get too much into the weeds or too specific, but basically she tells Fred that she thinks it's his. He says, it's not mine. She takes the baby to the fire station, surrenders the baby. The termination proceedings start in the circuit court. I think it's in Orlando, actually.
Yeah. Yep.
And then this is so bad that I know this off the top of my head. This is not healthy. And so the circuit court proceedings go forward. Termination happens. No one gets notice. They make that clear. 13 months after the termination proceedings happen, Fred and Molly get together, they get married, and they decide to go looking for Sonny. Sonny is with a same-sex couple, Terry and Pat. And it doesn't say how they found them, but they just found them, and they just, Fred thinks that Sonny looks like him, so he's going to, now he wants to be the dad, right? So then you're asked kind of, well, they come to the attorney's office, Fred, Molly, and Fred's parents, who also wanted to have a relationship with Sonny, even though they've never met him. And that's it. So they ask you about Molly's rights, notice, and notice issues and rights, and Fred's notice issues and rights, and grandparents' notice issues and rights. There is no call of the question for professional responsibility, but I think you could work it in if you had time.
They also ask if the same-sex couple can adopt.
Oh, yes.
That was the other one.
Yes.
So that's the question. That's a toughie. I mean, all the way through, that's a toughie. And, it's pretty crazy. Actually, I thought it was just an episode of This Is Us. Just saying.
I haven't seen it. Spoilers.
Okay. Yeah, I won't tell you. So anyway, it was a very tough question. And you are drafting. Part of the reason that Kelly knows these things is that one of her tasks is that Kelly does some of the drafting of our model answers along with our editorial team. And she and our senior editor, Megan, have been battling back and forth trying to figure out some of this stuff. So we're not saying these are easy questions, but that was the first question that was out there. The second question was the con law question. And this one, we won't go into as much detail, but basically we had sunshine laws and what else was going on here? We had a mayor meeting with a member of the city council, and they were drafting a curfew on juveniles, right?
Yeah, some secret meeting that they had.
Secret meetings. And then there's this proposed ordinance, and there's a whole lot of problems about what's going on. And then what you're asked to do is to talk about the proposed juvenile curfew ordinance under the Florida Constitution, and then how do you revise legislative findings of the ordinance so that it can pass constitutional muster. And then there was an ethics piece because one of the attorneys had prior representation of one of the people that's involved in this, right?
Yeah, who spoke out. It's the person who spoke out against the law at the city council meeting.
Yeah.
That's it. So.
And this question kind of reminded me of an earlier, a couple of exams ago. Didn't we have a Florida con law question that was kind of similar?
We had Florida con law. It focused on libel, and there was a little bit maybe of overbreadth and vagueness, maybe if you could get there. And I think there's a little bit of that here too. That you could get to. Yeah, they're similar, but they went to different. There's a possible Fourth Amendment argument in this one as well, because she wants to monitor their cell phone activity, something like that. But the calls of the question, I thought this was a very tough question because the calls are not set out like 1, 2, 3, 4, and they're not always, but I think they wanted to see what you would do with this. This is I think if people were going overboard, they could kitchen sink this if they didn't organize it and focus on distinct disputes.
Yeah, if you were an issue spotter, this was big time bad news.
Terrible question for you. Yeah.
You had to really stay focused on disputes, I think, to get through it all and be able to cover it. And of course, our strategy is write the ethics part first, make sure you cover that. My guess is we'll see some answers that come back that are pretty strong in other areas, but don't cover the ethics question and get dinged pretty hard. So it's going to be interesting to see the scoring on that one as well. And then question number 3. UCC 3 and 9 together again, right? Is that?
Yes.
Yes. We've got some antique cars, right? And I don't know. Debbie opens the Old Time Car Museum. She gets a loan. She signs a financing statement, and she sells on consignment gas station antiques that are owned by Carlos. I don't know. This sounds a lot like June's business to me. In any event, there's an antique gas pump, and there's checks made payable to, I don't know. It's a crazy question to me. Anyway, there's a lot going on. She sells some cars. She sells some other stuff, and she gets a cashier's check for some of this stuff. Anyway, I've just made it mostly confusing, haven't I? But
there's 4 separate transactions. It is very confusing, and it was meant to confuse you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So the calls of the question, actually, once you get through all that nutso stuff, what are the claims to the cars and the claims to the antiques that can be made by 3 different parties, the consignor, the bank, and by someone called uncle? And then any claims against First Bank, right? So there's a lot of stuff happening, but we've got a little bit of negotiable instruments here, would you say?
Yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm.
And we've got some secure transactions in collateral property, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So that's a lot of fun. I know people were thrilled about that. All right. So the reaction from our Florida students, I will say, at least the reaction I heard was, hey, these were tough questions. However, most people said to me that they had followed the approach that we had talked about. They used conflict pairs, disputes. They focused on those. If there were particular small items that they didn't feel like they knew, they made up arguments and used the law on both sides, and came back and persevered and pushed through it. And actually, people were pretty optimistic, I thought. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, I think so. I mean, I think that everyone was kind of zen. You know, I mean, going in, everyone's nervous, of course. But when I was discussing with the students on Wednesday, I mean, everyone just used FLA, and it seemed to calm them down, even if they got questions like the ones we just discussed, because they knew where to start. And once you start writing, you know, it just kind of clicks in, and you just keep writing. So it's a very helpful way to write.
Yeah, good. And do we know when Florida results are expected?
No, it's generally 6 weeks after.
So mid-September, right?
Mid-September, but they would definitely announce. I just haven't heard from the students what date they said to them. I know mine were released on like the 19th of September, but it's a Monday, September 18th.
September 18th, that's what we're hearing. Okay, September 18th. So for those of you who have some time off, there you go. That's the date. All right, let's move on to California. California, we got some conflicting reports from people, but I'm going to tell you what my sense is. And if any California bar takers are on the call today and want to clarify for us, please do that. We know less because we haven't seen the questions here. As you may know, California changed the form of their exam to 5 one-hour essays and 1 90-minute performance test. It was a 2-day exam. And the 5 essay subjects that we understand at this point, and in no particular order, because I don't really know how they were given, the order they were given, but we are understanding there was a California community property essay. We understand that there was a remedies essay. And I don't know, Kelly, do you know if the remedies was in, what topic it was in? Was it contract remedy, tort remedy?
I don't know that. I didn't get any specifics, but we have a couple of California people on if they'd like to let us know.
Would like to let us know that would be great. Mm-hmm. We understand there was a professional responsibility, which would be California professional responsibility, maybe with a little bit of evidence crossover. We heard that from some people, but not everyone. So it may have been that we had something going on with an evidence problem in that question as well. Torts, it was torts remedies. Okay, great. So that remedies was in torts, at least that's what we're hearing. Okay, good, thank you. So the fourth, not necessarily number 4, but the fourth topic I've got is civil procedure. And this was a temporary restraining order. And one of the questions I've got, I don't know if you know the answer, Kelly, was this primarily federal civil procedure or California civil procedure? Do we know that?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, so again, if we've got any of our California people and they want to tell us, historically what California has done is to call the topic California civil procedure and then test federal civil procedure, but they certainly have the freedom to test California topics, but this was the temporary restraining order. And then I understand that there was a torts essay in strict product liability. So the remedies question, if that is correct, happened to be in a torts setting, and then you had a generic torts question in strict liability. So those are the topics that we're hearing. Let's see. Okay, so Dave's telling us Civ Pro, maybe both federal and California. Okay, interesting. So that'll be a fun one to see when it comes out. Then the performance test. One of the things that we weren't sure as to how it was going to happen was whether or not California would write their own version of the performance test, or they'd use the National Conference 90-minute performance test. It looks like they wrote their own version. I don't think these are going to be the same performance tests that we get in the UBE or Georgia or Texas. So that will be interesting to see what they did with the MPT and how California handled it. Kelly, what kind of feedback did you get from people about the California exam?
The California exam, people were actually happy that it was no longer 3 days. They said 2 days was much better. Most of the people that I talked to for California, the first day they describe it as a bear. I'm quoting you, Shannon, that the first day is a bear because I have so much writing. But that again, with the FLA, didn't seem to be a real struggle. I heard more about the MBE than I did about the essay day, to be honest.
We're going to talk about MBE, and we will talk about MBE here in just a minute.
Yeah, but the MPTs were California specific. That's what I've heard from the students, that they're California specific, and we confirmed that with the other UBE folks, that the essay topics that they said were not the same as the UBE.
Okay. And so I think what we got on the performance test was what's called an offer letter. So I would think that we were talking about to a legal audience. And was it persuasive or objective? Sounds like it might have been persuasive to me. Persuasive test to a legal audience. That would be my interpretation of what we're hearing about that performance test. Sorry, I hadn't said that before. All right. So one other point about California that I think we need to say. There's been a lot of discussion about the cut score, which is currently 1440. There is some notice now that at least it's been proposed that the new cut score be reduced to 1414. I have no idea where that number came from. That would be great. I would love to see a 1414. The bigger question, I think, is there any chance that that would be made effective for the July 2017 exam? We don't have a clear answer to this yet. I would tell the people that took the exam in July to assume that they need 1440. If it turns out to be 1414, yay, that's great. That will change the ball game pretty significantly. But my guess is it will not be made retroactive, and that 1414 number is not yet set in stone. That's simply the recommendation that's been made. So what that means in effect is a 141 multi-state score, since it's 50% of your score instead of a 144. 3-point difference there doesn't really seem like a big deal. But if we put that into the bigger context of the essays and performance tests and the MBE, it's a pretty significant drop to go down. My math isn't great, but essentially we're talking, I think, 26 points. That could be significant. So we'll see what happens. We'll keep you informed as this comes along. I think for February 2018, you can anticipate a lower cut score. Don't know what it'll be, don't know how it'll happen yet, but I think you can anticipate a lower cut score. So that's good news because, there's not really a reason for that exam to be that difficult. All right. Unless there's anything else on that, let's jump to UBE. Thank you all for being patient while we talk through all these. The UBE, or the Uniform Bar Exam, which is given 27 states, what we know right now, and we will get the actual questions and the drafter point sheets in about 5 or 6 weeks, and so we'll have much better information. There were 6 essays, and we understand those subjects as being torts, secured transactions, which was UCC 9, wills, and again, remember, these are all generic subjects. They are not state-specific, so, generic law of wills. Federal constitutional law was the 4th subject. Then we had 2 crossover subjects, it sounds like. Question 5, we're hearing, was an evidence and criminal procedure combination question. And question 6 was a civil procedure, which would be federal civil procedure, obviously, with conflicts of law. Now, conflicts of law is only given as a crossover topic. It is not ever used as a pure essay question. Would not surprise me if there's a little bit of conflicts of law in a Civ Pro question, so that one seems reasonable. I would say if there's any surprise, it's probably putting evidence and Crim Pro together, simply because the examiners in the UBE tend to not want to combine topics. But that's what we're hearing about that. The torts, secured transactions, wills, and con law, my feedback was that they were all pretty straightforward. Did you hear differently?
No, I mean, I heard the same as you, just that, using our format, it was pretty straightforward. They're not trying to hide the ball, that there were no trick questions. I didn't hear anything like that.
Yeah, we didn't get any of that kind of feedback, that it was a tricky exam in that regard. But I think it's good, good, solid testing. This is the test that I think is sort of the gold standard. So that's the one that I'd be watching for in terms of setting the tone for other people. Again, UBE scores come out, different jurisdictions, different times. We'll see Missouri, I think, in early September. It's one of the first jurisdictions. And then we'll roll through into late September and throughout the month of October. New York typically will release in October their UBE scores. So we'll watch for that and see what happens. And of course, as soon as we get the questions, then we'll release those and we'll work on our answers as well as giving you the drafter point sheets. So if anybody's got anything to say about UBE, jump on and let us know. But that's what we know at this moment. And again, I would say that was not surprising. There was nothing about that threw us. The MPTs, there were 2 MPTs in the UBE. I don't know much about those 2 MPTs. Haven't heard a lot, which is always good. I actually like it when I don't hear something. It kind of makes me think it was kind of a non-starter. But if anybody wants to share with us what they know about that would be great. All right, let's move on to Georgia. Georgia. 4 essays, and boy, they get their money's worth in Georgia. I got to tell you, these people are nuts. No,
Peaches.
That will get me in trouble. All right, I didn't mean that. Sorry, people in Georgia, I love you. 4 essays. Essay number 1, I think it's in this order, was a contracts remedies crossover. This had a question dealing with an oral contract with a anticipatory repudiation. There was then a question about different remedies, specific performance, legal remedies, and there was also sort of a intentional interference with contracts by third parties. So maybe a little bit of torts thrown in there. That's a lot for a 45-minute essay. So that was question number 1. Question number 2 was property, my favorite, and it was an easement question having to do with adverse possession and remedies for a bona fide purchaser. Then asking sort of, if the seller gave permission for the easement, does that change anything? Duh, you think. So that was question number 2. Question number 3 was ethics. If you may have noticed, ethics is making its appearance seen in a lot of subjects. Now we see Florida, we see California, we see Georgia, all with professional responsibilities. So something to be aware of for that. And that was by itself not a crossover, which was interesting to me. And then Georgia civil procedure. This one, I got to tell you, this one kind of freaked me out. But our Georgia students were very cool about it. It was ante litem notice, which means the intent to bring a claim. And this is really narrow Georgia law. If you intend to bring a claim, that's called ante litem notice. And what's the procedure to follow and what's the proper venue? And it was dealing in a wills context. So talking about a will being probated in one county, and then the executor is appointed in another county. And does the statute of limitations toll in a negligent claim dealing with the death of this party? Oh my gosh. I mean, so you've got ante litem notices, statute of limitations, probate, all put together. So I would say civil procedure with a little bit of wills and administration of estates. Holy cow.
That's Georgia. A big essay to have towards the end, too. That's kind of mean.
It is 45 minutes. Come on, guys. Give us a break here, will you?
Yeah.
And then, of course, the 2 MPTs. Now, what we've been told, and Andrew's telling me what I've heard before. One of the performance tests was persuasive to a legal audience. having to do with state actors, and the second was objective task, and I think it was also to a legal audience, but I'm not sure of that, having to do with something about a farm, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I've heard that. Yes. That's all that people remember about that one. There was a farm.
The farm.
But I did hear actually that some students thought that it was similar to some of the MPTs that were in our packet. So that was nice.
That'd be nice. It'd be nice if they do that. So there you go. Okay, and somebody walked up to one of the Georgia bar examiners and told them 45 minutes was not enough. Great, good. I hope you were anonymous when you did that. All right, now moving on, because I've already made enough enemies in Georgia and they watch what I do. Rescue birds? Really? Seriously? Okay.
Oh, on the farm. Oh, nice.
On the farm. There were rescue birds on the farm. I don't want to know. All right. Okay. Texas. That leaves us with Texas. Texas is the most sort of non-fluctuating. You get 12 essays, 2 in each category, 30 minutes each. We know that there was, so in the business associations grouping, there was partnerships and corporations. Often there's 2 partnerships questions, so it was interesting to have a corporations question. Then we had the UCC 9 grouping, no surprise there. The UCC 3 grouping, no surprise there. Then we've got the grouping of property, which sometimes comes with oil and gas. And in fact, in this exam, there was 1 property essay and 1 oil and gas essay there. In the area of wills and administration of estates, we had 1 wills question, 1 estates question. So again, pretty balanced. The examiners were pretty, they didn't go crazy on anything here. In trusts, for reasons that I don't always understand, trust is grouped in its section with consumer rights. They don't always ask a consumer rights question, but they did this time. So there was 1 trust essay and 1 consumer rights. We did not have a guardianship question. That's the part where people sometimes would wonder. And then we had a Texas family law or domestic relations and a Texas community property question. So pretty balanced across the board. And of course, they have the MPTs as well. And I don't know which MPT they had in Texas, if it was the state actor, USC 1983, or it was the farm birds. I don't know, whatever. So
Noelle's on the call. Maybe
Noelle can tell us. Okay, so anyway, so that's what we know about Texas. I don't know that we've got, I forgot to ask you if you know release dates. I know California, we are looking at, hold on, let me just look at this. Our exam release date in California should be, when should it be? I'm thinking about Thanksgiving time, but I don't have a date. If any of you know your exam release dates, go ahead and type them in, let us know here, and we'll share them out. Texas, I don't have a release date, and Georgia, I don't have a release date, I don't think. Maybe I do. Yeah, I do not have a release date in any of those.
Noelle said Texas was the farm birds MPT.
I can hardly wait to see this farm bird question. Okay, fine. The farm birds question in Texas. Okay, so there you go. And if, let's see, California, November 17th is the exam release date. That's great. Lovely. Hope you all enjoy your Thanksgiving in California.
I actually heard from a student who said that in New York, they were told that they could possibly hear in November instead of October. But I always feel like they say it's going to be later and then they surprise everybody and have it come sooner.
Right. That is the October surprise, at least in our world. And UB, of course, obviously different jurisdictions, different dates. Sometimes that throws people. They think, well, it's the same test. Don't we get the results everywhere? No, results come out differently. Georgia, we're hearing maybe October 27th. That sounds about right. End of October. They've been trying to get their results out sooner. They have been really dinged for coming out late in years past. So we will see there. So Texas, I do not know that release date yet. Okay, let's talk about multi-state for a minute. Multi-state, Kelly, you want to share some of what you've heard about the multi-state?
Yes, actually heard the most about the multi-state. So the best description that I heard was from the students on a group coaching session, and it was that it's not that they were more difficult, it's that the answer choices were more in layman's terms. So that's what we've been hearing. So for instance, if there's an evidence question and you're a photo reader and impeachment pops into your head, and you're looking for impeachment, it wouldn't say impeachment. It would just say, to contradict the testimony, kind of how you would explain it to a client type of thing. And so that some people said that threw them a little bit, and others said that actually made it easier for them because it was clearer for the answers. So I just got a lot of mixed results, but people definitely thought that the afternoon session of the MBE was very difficult and that the morning session was manageable. Obviously, it's never easy, but
Right.
manageable. But definitely the afternoon session, I think, was the hardest for most people. And that's where folks saw the differences in the answer choices.
Yeah. And, one of the things we don't know is because there are 25 evaluation questions, they may be evaluating some different language, some different approaches, and some of what may have stood out, what may have been more apparent to you as a bar taker are these evaluation questions, but you don't really know how that's going to run. Now, this is interesting because there's a comment that this seemed easier to some people than the February 91 practice test, but we got responses saying it was much tougher than the February 91 test. Mm-hmm. For those who are going to hear this later and say, what do they mean February 91? We use among the tests in our course, we have a very highly predictive test from February 1991. We don't know why it's highly predictive. It just is, and it continues to be. And so we continue to use that among many other questions because it correlates so well to the actual results. But it is a different form of the exam. It's different subjects. There's all sorts of weird stuff. And I think it's perception. I think some people perceive the test to be much harder. Others perceive it to be tougher or easier. But the other part of this, one of the things I noticed in hearing back from students, and correct me if you heard differently, Kelly, most of our students felt like they finished the MBE with time to spare by using the intuitive method.
Yes, absolutely. I heard that across the board.
Yeah. And so we had a lot of people who were talking about finishing in 2.5 hours or less, people taking breaks, prepared pit stops to get a break, to get up, sort of collect themselves. And feeling pretty calm all the way through, even when they weren't thrilled with the quality of the questions or what was going on. I think that's generally it. Mm-hmm. And we're hearing from some people, the questions were shorter in length. That would be what we would expect now. Shorter, more focused questions. I think the examiners are moving that direction. We'll see. I think that with a test like this, where the distinctions are such fine line distinctions, it is almost impossible to walk out and know how you've done. People come out and say, "Oh, I killed it," or I got crushed. I don't know. The only way I really know is if somebody says, "Well, I never got through all 100 questions in 3 hours." That we know is a problem. But we didn't have that happening. I'm seeing people writing here saying, "I finished, 20 minutes to go," or 2 hours, 40 minutes. That's great. So that's what we're looking for. And I think we've got good results in store on the multi-state. We particularly like the fact that in California, multi-state's worth 50% of the exam score now, so that should be good. And obviously it's a big part of the UBE score as well. So there are there's some real positives, I think, with all of that. Okay. Anything else about MBE that you heard?
No, it was just the afternoon was very difficult, and the answer choices were just in a different, I guess, written format. I would describe it.
Yeah. So we'll watch. Usual. We'll see. Yeah, we'll see what the examiners have to say about it when they release their information to us, and that's always kind of an interesting point to say. We contact them and say, "Okay, so what'd you do differently?" And they say, "Nothing, not a thing." We're like, "Well, that's not what we're hearing," but there you go. So that's the deal. Just to follow up on Texas, first week of November is probably the anticipated date. So there we go there.
We did get something earlier saying that on the Board of Law Examiners website, the plan release date is Friday, November 3rd, 2017.
Okay. And that's in Texas.
Texas.
Okay. Friday, November 3rd. Great. That means it'll come out the weekend before, because they do that. Don't be waiting until November 3rd, Texans. That result will come out on Thursday or Friday of the week before.
Do they do it like New York, Jackson, where they just get an email in the middle of the night, or does Texas come out in the morning?
I think Texas is more refined and it actually comes out during daylight hours. It's only New York that does the midnight email.
Surprise. Exactly.
Just keep your eyes open, and there it is. So we'll let everybody know as we hear. I usually get a spidey sense of when that result is about to come out, and I give my spidey sense email out. Well, that's our episode for this week. I hope that you enjoyed it and it was useful to you. We'll be back again next week. We've got a lot of great information coming. We've got some more interviews with passing bar takers. We've got some additional messages that I've prepared on the topic of exam peace, two words that don't seem to go together. So I hope you'll be with us for that upcoming information. Again, I want to remind you that we've got our free live webinar this Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern, how to make the next bar exam your last bar exam. It's the powerful, proven way to pass. I hope you'll join me. You can register on our website at celebrationbarreview.com, or just scroll down this video page and find the button and join us this Thursday for that powerful information. Well, have a great week of study and a great week generally, and we'll see you along the extra mile and hopefully on the pass list in the very near future. Thanks for now. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers at www.celebrationbarreview.com.